Welcome to today's video. Before beginning, please read the trade disclaimer. Please understand that this is not financial advice, just my commentary and opinion. Everyone, welcome to this next pattern. So in this video, as you can guess, we're looking at a triple top. Now, in this particular pattern, what we're looking for is where price will come down from the low to the high to the bottom, creating a 1-2, a retest of the high, but not potentially breaking it up, so you're getting a 3, a potential drop down to create a 4, not necessarily tapping 2. So this effectively can be here, but it should not be equal, because then that will change the pattern. Okay, so for a triple top, you have something along that line, so that will then create the 4, and the 5th will be the rejection on the high. Okay, so what you then get is a bearish pattern, and then we break out on the 6. Okay, so once we break out, which is effectively the same point as where we had the single test of 2. Okay, so in this scenario, what we're looking for is how we measure our profit target and where our stop losses should be. So again, in this case, we will take from 2 all the way to the high of 1. Okay, we measure that height and we use that as a breakout from where 6 would occur. And our target in this case is approximately there. Okay, so let's remove that. Now in this scenario, we're going to look at, as I mentioned, potential areas of target or for profit, potential entry areas, potential stop losses. So because this a triple top is a short pattern where we have 1, 2, 3, so effectively points 1, 0.3, and 5 potentially are equals. Okay, and as they are, this is considered a bearish pattern. And you know, people look at this as W's and M's. So an M, this is how it will become, and the W would be obviously the reverse. So in this case, the way they define this as an M, you've got the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, and then the 6. But in reality, it is a triple top, okay? Because there's a chance you'll have this. Now, anyway, so let's look at our targets, okay? So let's take the fib, again as before, but we are only using the fib divided by in sections. So effectively, from the low to the high, yeah? Doesn't matter which way you do. So if you do it this way, and you've already marked up 0.25, this will occur here. If you do it from the low to the high, it becomes like this. So what we're doing is we're using the 0.25 increments to determine where our stop loss can be. Okay, so in this sort of case, you have multiple choices for where your stop's going to be based on your entry. Now, the first typical area where one would enter, we can do a stop to this level here, and our target can be to that low over here. So what occurs, price breaks out, and effectively you are in a trade. Okay, we come back, retest, and we hit target. That's one scenario. The other scenario can be if we look at, say, you know, how price moves. So in this case, this price can come up to this point and bounce. Now, if our entry was like this, if we didn't preset it at the breakout point of 6, then we would miss it. And then the only other way that one could potentially get into this trade is if this target was on the middle of the retrace. So effectively, you get a bounce, so you get a breakout, you get the pullback, and we take the entry roughly halfway up the breakout. That's one area. And your stop loss then at that point can be at the entry of the breakout. Now, in this case, the problem you can get, because it's so tight, price can come back and hit there and stop you out. And the only way to avoid that is if your stop loss is over here. So you need to also then understand if your stop loss is here and our entry is based on the breakout, then retest of the halfway point of the breakout, yes, it works out, you know, 2 to 2.3 to 1, which is not bad. If, however, you know, you want a better risk to reward, yes, in this case you get 5.8 to 1, but the problem is there's a high chance of getting stopped out. Then the other alternative is obviously, as I mentioned before, on the breakout of 6. So you take it as soon as we break out. Some people, as I mentioned, will wait for a confirmation testing the support as an area of resistance, and then obviously if this was like that and that's your stop loss, becomes almost 3.95 to 1, which is not bad. So again, these are the different areas you look at. The other way one could trade this is we could take a higher risk trade. A higher risk trade is effectively we would enter on the rejection of 0.5, and our stop loss is based on a minus 0.25, and then we can then target this further down to the breakout point, so effectively to this area here. So what this does is creates a massive risk to reward of 7.1 to 1, so almost 8 to 1. But understand there's a higher risk, but again we use our stop loss. So our stop loss is set here, so if price then reverts, it will get stopped out. If it doesn't and dumps down, brilliant. In this sort of setup, one can also add a level of take profit. So you could effectively say, as price moves past, say, the 0.5 level, yeah, in this case, halfway mark of the triple top area, one could put a stop loss. We could move that to break even, thus removing any risk on the trade to be, lost. Well, in a loss. So that's one way to look at it. And you could also take a partial profit, maybe at 0.5 or 0.75. And then if you do that and leave the rest to the top, that's another potential way you could trade this. So looking at it from this point, you can see you have multiple ways to trade this. There will be some people who will take risks, who will see this channel and they will attempt to take it from the 3 to maybe the 4 and then again. But again, these are higher risk trades, and same with this. But it's all about risk management and trade management and managing and ensuring you have a stop. So if you do take this and the risk of getting stopped at was, it does not reverse from here, we go up and then come down, fine. If it just breaks through and moves up, understand it will stop you at, hence the risk. Another alternative way of looking at this is one could move this down and, have the stop loss on the confirmed rejection at 0.5. So if we reject, come down, we can have a short order at the 0.25 level, and our target in this case becomes over here, and then effectively still a good trade. It's still almost 7 to 1, and this is the advantages of using the 0.25 increments percent as potential areas for stop loss. It's not set in stone. In certain worlds or certain cases or certain patterns, one may put a stop loss here. But if I was to do that in this case, this point here, we stop out on the high, and our entry was all the way on the breakout, this will become a terrible trade because the risk to reward is just not to justify it. So that's why you have all these other choices to take from. So again, this is the advantage of using levels. Okay, so that's it for triple top. So what we will do now is we'll go to the triple bottom, which you can guess is the reverse of this pattern. In a triple bottom scenario, what we're looking for is to get at the bottom, we want to get points 1, 3, and 5, and then a breakout on the 6. And again, it's the same sort of scenario. Okay, you want to have 3 almost equal bottoms, and then a breakout on the second attempt at the top. Okay, so you have the 1, price comes down, creates 1, 2, then the third. The fourth doesn't go as high because if it did, can potentially be classed as a double top, right? So you don't want that to occur. And if that does occur, then the triple bottom pattern is invalidated because you'll have a double top or potential double bottom in this case. So that's why you have to look for the 0.4 anywhere just not high or equal to 2. So in this case, for example, just to make it easier, I've marked it slightly above the middle. Then you get the 5, the breakout on the 6, okay, and then potential retest was once, resistance becomes support, and then we break out. And as before, we'll take point from here, point 1, all the way down to point 2, okay? And that would be our target for TP. We measure it, mark that on the top, and we set our target approximately around here, okay? Once we delete this, same sort of thing, what we're looking at, just to make our life easy, we'll use a fib level again. In this case, put 0.25 at the bottom. And so what we're looking for now is a target on the long side. And so initially, your entry may be like this. We target the high, okay? And our stop loss can be on the 75% level, which is effectively 25% of the entire wave, where the triple bottom rectangle pattern as our stop. And then effectively, if you entered here, brilliant. Price may come back, retest it, and then move up. If it doesn't do that, then there's obviously that possibility as before. Price doesn't come down to retest, but effectively, it could just come down halfway and then bounce up. And if that occurs, this sort of pattern covers you in this case. However, if you do enter maybe halfway up here and your stop loss is on this, on the breakout, the problem you'll get with something like this, it becomes a tighter stop loss, price comes down, and you have to be certain it's going to go up. And if certain cases it wicks down, tests that, you get stopped out. Now, in certain cases, you might think, well, I could probably put it down here. You could, but your risk to reward is not that great. So it's good, but not as better as effectively having it like this. Okay, so if your risk to reward was here, and we made this tighter, and we will bring this down, that's one option. The other option is, you could have it here, so it reduces. But in the ideal sort of way, what I would do is, on the breakout, I would take it more like this, because it will cover me for two scenarios. If it breaks up, I'll take it on the break. If it comes back down, tests, I'm still at my entry, and that's it. Perfect trade. 4-to-1. That's a good risk to reward we're looking at. Then, if, for example, in this case, if we did dip down and we did not drop more than 25% of the high to the low, of the triple bottom rectangle area, then, you're fine. If it stops out, so be it. It stops out, because then anything further down, you potentially think it could probably invalidate the pattern, right? So that's one way to look at it. Another way one could trade this is you could take it all the way down. This is, again, for more experienced traders. You can take it on the bounce from 3. If we bounce up, stop loss becomes on a minus 25%, which is based on the high and the low. So you effectively, like from 1 and 2, the height of the rectangle. And then your target is that. So effectively what you're doing is you're getting double the amount. Now the risk here is obviously, price rejects or it fails to, break up or bounce, and it just comes down. That's entirely possible. Now, but the reward you can potentially get is you're taking this trade on the bounce. So effectively it's double the risk, double the reward with the same amount of risk. And the risk all comes down to getting stopped out. The other option is one could also take this trade where they could put the entry at 25% up after we've got a confirmed bounce, and the stop loss can be here. So if the price hits this area, you go into a long position and you've given yourself enough area to bounce, and then we can move up. You could also potentially put it here once it's bounced as the stop loss area. And this all comes down to your risk and reward and your experience. So that's it for the triple bottom. So this is it for the rectangular patterns. I'll be going through some other patterns later on in my next video. See you then. Bye-bye.